So the reason I appreciate you reaching out to me was, I mean, we're going back a while now. We've been talking about your son was looking for work. Was it
Yeah.
a trades? Or
It was trades.
Okay.
It's my son who graduated this year, yeah.
Okay. How did that conversation start? Like, I love that you reached out. I love that you guys came over for a drink and a
Yeah.
visit. Like, I love all that stuff. It's awesome to me.
Well, I actually reached out to you to introduce myself with my business, Level Up Safety Technology.
Mm-hmm.
And you transferred me over to the proper person in safety.
Oh, amazing. Good.
That's how that
Good.
went. And then I just, I enjoy watching what you post, and I see that you're passionate about children and trades and trying to set them up for success. So I thought, I'm going to ask David if he would be interested in talking about meeting me and my son and discussing a little bit more about trades.
I love that you did it.
Me
Made it out
too.
to totally strangers. I don't know. That's great. That's
It is
awesome.
great.
I had this young kid reach out to me. I'm going to say not even a week ago.
Yeah.
Nathan Martin, I think his name was, in Edmonton. Same thing. He reached out to ask about some courses and going to trades and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I'm like, I never would have had the courage. Like, Aimee, when you were a kid, would you ever have the courage as a young person to reach out to a random stranger and talk about school stuff?
You know what?
You're more
did.
outgoing than I was. Okay, got it.
I was a tomboy growing up, a big tomboy, right? I have an older brother and I have an older sister, and I gravitated more towards my brother, right?
Okay.
As I was a tomboy. But as I got older and more into junior high, my sister wanted to set me up for a success of being a woman, right? And try to kind of help me move into that stage of becoming a woman. And so I do remember in junior high was when I kind of started looking up to my sister. And around that time, we had, what would you call it? You know, we had a woman come in to discuss her business. Her name was Kelly Head, and I'm connected through her with Facebook right now, so it's
Awesome.
interesting if I'll send this to her. But Kelly Head came in. She was the owner of Cachet Lady Eve Bridal,
Okay.
a clothing store. And I had no business, really, actually applying for this job. But I just looked up to her and I'm like, wow, she's like a woman, she's beautiful, and maybe I can get into working. And I was 12 years old.
Oh my God, you're so brave.
I was so brave.
Yeah.
And I did. I went in there and I asked Kelly for a job. And being there really did help shape me, also along with my sister, to become a woman and look like a woman, right? And so I started out like cleaning windows and steaming wedding dresses
Cool.
and staining bridal shoes is how I started, right? And that's kind of was my growth into becoming a woman was that. So my answer to you was
You are, yeah, yes. yeah.
I was one of those.
And
yeah.
it's interesting because I'd say 12 for a young woman, those would be very formative years too.
Very.
Yeah.
And I tried so hard. I think, you know, I remember they felt so much older than me, right? And now we're just probably about anywhere from 6 to 10 years apart, right? From the ladies that work there. But yeah, I tried hard and I grinded it out. I hated steaming wedding dresses. I hated staining those wedding shoes and cleaning windows and mirrors. And she made sure I did it right. And you know what? I never thought about it. When I was getting ready for this, and one of your questions, she never came to my mind until you asked me that question. And she is definitely someone I looked up to and was a part of my growth.
Interesting.
So thanks for reminding me of that.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that question is because, you know, I've had so many people help me on my journey, so
Yeah.
I'm always like to point the question at someone,
Yeah.
you know, who are some of those people you help you? And I like to clarify personally or professionally because there's some overlap
Yeah.
in those questions. And then I usually follow it up with, well, have you told them?
Never.
And the reason I say that is, again, very, I don't want to say self-serving because I know there's some people who had really impacted me as a younger person.
Yeah.
And I never told them. And some of them are obviously not with us anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to do that. It was Kelly Head and Christine Dick. And I believe there was another lady of Susan, Diane. They all shaped me. And I was really a nobody at that point to them. I was just a young girl doing
Just a
their
kid.
chores. Right?
Put yourself in their shoes. Can you imagine a young 12-year-old kid came up and say, "Can I have a job?" Squeaky voice.
Yeah.
How do you not give that kid a job?
And looking like a tomboy, probably. They're probably like, yeah. But you know what? She hired me.
Yeah.
And I'll forever be grateful for that. I was always working. I coached gymnastics as gymnastics. That was my sport of choice growing up. And I babysat. I've always loved kids. My mom was a day-home caregiver, so I was raised around kids all the time, and I've always liked to take care of people. So those are my early jobs. Yeah.
They change you.
They
So
change
you grew up in GP, right?
Grand Prairie, Alberta, a true oil town.
For sure.
Yeah.
How long were you there for?
Born and raised.
Yeah.
I was born and raised there. Gosh, I wanted out of Grand Prairie fast. I graduated, and I was still 17 when I graduated. And I came to Calgary with my girlfriends to come to Stampede at fake ID. And after I came here, I went back home. And I said to my mom and dad, I'm moving to Calgary. And at 17, I celebrated my 18th birthday while I lived here, because I moved here at that young age. And only lasted probably about 9 months, and I ended up back home to Grand Prairie. But since then, I have been in and out of Grand Prairie. It's always my home. It's always my safe place. So if things don't work out in the city I move to, I tend to go back home to Grand Prairie. But it has been now, 19 years since I've lived there.
Are your folks still there?
Mom and dad are still there. My brother is still there. I have uncles that are there. So it's home. It will always feel like home.
Like I like GP because a lot of those northern Alberta cities, to me it's really polished up, because I was pipelining there maybe 25 years ago, and it's really polished up since then.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like I said, there's no place like home, but it's nice to just go and visit, right?
Come on, after 2 decades, Calgary's home, no?
Calgary's home. Yeah, Calgary is home. It's been a great place to raise my children, right? And I love the mountains. You know, that's kind of like our spot that we go unwind. It's 30 minutes to get to Kananaskis from my door. So,
love it.
You know, we spend a lot of time. And it's a beautiful city. And I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to pretty much raise my kids here. Yeah. They're old. They're adults.
Yeah.
So it's gone by fast.
Break your heart when they leave home, eh?
Yeah, like if my kids ever did what I did to my parents, like I just apologize to my parents now.
Good for
I'm
you.
so sorry.
Oh my
for putting
God.
you through that.
Well, I told you our middle kid Trekker, I dropped him off at Victoria in last September long
yeah.
for school, and I thought, man, I think I started getting choked up, giving him a hug, said, I love you, I'm so proud of you, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh my God, like, what the heck?
But how quick?
Well, I just feel like, and sometimes, you stare at Sweet Maria, I'm like, I still feel like we're kids some days.
I do too.
And yet here we are sending out these people into the world,
Yeah, my son graduated this year, and I graduated 30 years ago. It felt like yesterday.
Yeah.
It just felt like yesterday that my baby was a baby, right? And even my eldest, who's turning 25 next month, right? So it gives me an opportunity to live my life now. Not that I've never lived my life. I lived for my children, but I do have to now accept that it's time to let go in a way of it's okay. Let them go and do their thing. You got to trust that what you've done in their lifetime has shaped them for who they are today, to spread their wings and let them know that it's okay to fail. It's okay to not know what you want to do today.
Yeah.
And that brings me back, I'm really thankful for the friendship that we've built. So thank you for having me here today. Thank you for spending that time with my son.
Of course.
But, after we left your house, I just know that's not something my son wanted to do.
Okay.
I felt it.
You felt it. Okay.
I felt it. And we're trying to figure that out. And it's not my job it's not my place to figure that out for him, but it is my job as his mother to maybe help him, right? And the one thing that my youngest Jace is incredible, he's always been a kid in heart, sports. it drives him. And unfortunately, he has a benign tumor on his femur that stops him from playing, going further in sports, right? Because for full body contact or anything like that, he can't do. But he would be so good at broadcasting. And I thought to myself, my God, what about sports broadcasting?
For sure. They have a program right here at State.
Exactly, they do. One of my middle son's friend is over there right now.
Yeah.
And he lit up. And I just said, look at your favorite broadcasters. That could be you. Because he truly is. He met Jason. I really think that he would excel in that. And his valedictorian on Wednesday at his grad, man, she's amazing. I got to introduce myself to her and thank her because she was just spectacular what she did. She was a natural and inspiring. And after that, when I was taking pictures of my son in the morning, he said, hey, Mom, let's check into that sports broadcasting.
I love it.
And I'm thinking, and you know what? He might change his mind again, but he's passionate about it, something that shifted that morning, and that's what I'll do.
That's so cool.
I'll kind of lead him to that.
I wonder about these young people because, no, I'm not saying it was easier when we were that age, but I will say there's probably more and different options, and I think it can be overwhelming.
So overwhelming.
Because they're just kids, quote unquote, and now we're saying, okay, pick something, and that you're going to build a career as a foundation.
That's right.
It's a pretty daunting decision.
It is.
Yeah.
Some kids are different. Some kids are education, and just that's where they thrive. And COVID, I think it really hit differently, and it really stalled the maturity level of those kids in that time.
I've heard that from others. Yeah.
Even education-wise, he's a little bit behind, but whatever, he'll make it up. He's a brilliant kid. He truly is. I think all of these kids are brilliant. And some of them, they learn different.
Oh, absolutely.
Doesn't mean they have a learning disability. And we're so easy, today's world are so easy to say you have a learning disability because you learn differently. And I learned that when my eldest had a severe brain injury. He's turning 25, but when he was 12 years old, he had a severe brain injury. And it threw our lives off.
Sure.
I had to stop everything in that moment to rehabilitate him. He lost his ability to read, write, even had to take a few steps at a time, right? And after that, he struggled. Of course he had struggles. He wasn't able to be into the normal education plan because it was too much for him. And we had to go to Calgary Academy. Our options were to go to Calgary Academy or for Jet to go into the education through the hospital.
And you went Calgary Academy, right?
Yeah, I went there. And they kind of looked at his file and said, it's a tough one. And I said, give it a year. It doesn't work out, we'll go our different ways, right? But Jack went into Calgary Academy, and that's another profound moment for us that saved his life. I believe in education. It gave him the opportunity to graduate. And it also gave him the opportunity to learn tools that have set him up to be successful today.
I believe it very strongly.
When they told me in his rehabilitation that they weren't going to really focus on him writing again because it's chicken scratch and he can't really read to a high level, that was shocking to me. But they knew where technology was going to be when he became an adult, and that's what we focused on. And it has been the most, probably the most profound moment in my life to watch my son not only survive, but to struggle and to fight and to find the tools to give him, like I said, to be successful. And in today's world, after he graduated, it was a really sad thing because, when we took him out, I remember my fiance took him to go drop off applications or resumes and stuff, and they'd say, okay, can you fill out an application? And that was difficult for him. And when they looked at the application, they wouldn't even give him the opportunity to further conversation or to have an interview, right? And I just...
Tough to see that as a parent.
It is tough to see that as a parent because our world just... The intelligence, they expect it to be, you know, their way. But if you really take the time to understand what intelligence is, you give these people who have these disabilities that are really to be they use those disabilities to become intelligent and brilliant in their own ways. And he's using a new part of his brain. It's crazy. I don't even... It blows me away to hear him speak, right? You would never think in a million years that that kid had a severe brain injury. But it's sad because the outside world will never give him the opportunity. And that's where I built my business. I built this business for the purpose of my children because I had to build something for them because I just know that Jet doesn't have, you know, didn't have that opportunity, right, on paper.
For sure.
But he might not choose to work with me. His dad's a developer, a very successful developer, and he might continue to work in construction, and that's just fine. But my purpose behind this business was to build something for my children.
Oh, you never stop being a mom, eh?
Never. Never.
I like that you said Calgary Academy. I know that really jumped out when you were at our place there a few weeks back, and like we can't speak enough about our kids' experience there because we did feel one in particular was falling through the cracks. We're like, how is this possible? Such a good kid, such a nice kid, and all. And like again, every opportunity to speak at Calgary Academy and encourage people, and there's something special about that place. And it's been a launching pad. So we had 3 kids go through it. Journey graduates next month, and same as Jace, and we're sending them out to the world.
It's scary, isn't it?
Oh, I almost don't even believe it. Like I said, I feel like we're young kids still, and here we are with these kids.
I know.
I'm like, well, you guys are just kids. What do you mean you're going to university?
I feel like a kid, and then you look in the mirror and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, it sneaks up on us, eh?
It does sneak up on you, but it's okay. Yeah, I could hardly recognize those kids. You know, they're such huge schools. You know, like it was a bit different. Jet's graduation at Calgary Academy was much smaller. Then I think there was like 700 graduates at Ernest Manning. Oh
yeah, I've heard of numbers like that, and Winston Churchill's the same. Like these are like 500, 600, 700 like grade 12 grads. Like I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, you go there, and all these kids that I used to volunteer with and had them in my groups, you know, I didn't even recognize them. Some you recognize, some don't change, but some you just don't even recognize. And now they're graduating, and I'm sending my kid off. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it's okay.
Oh, no, it's exciting. It's a good thing. I know I'm very grateful to be a parent, and I know not everyone gets to be a parent or even wants to, or probably even should for that matter. But it suits me, and clearly it suits you as well.
It does. It's my purpose in life.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I want to talk to you about was just that. The level up safety.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really know about it until I started talking to you about it. And I think there's something there. Like, I always feel our industry is always evolving, and it's evolving in a good way, safety-wise for sure.
Yeah.
I can say in Pipeline, culturally, safety has a very good culture, and it's getting better all the time, thankfully.
Yes.
You have a technology in a way to support that, and that's what I'm hoping you can share with us a little bit.
Well, it was something, I just started Level Up Safety a few years ago. Real estate has been in and out of my life since I was 18 years old, believe it or not. I guess that was just a couple of years ago, but anyways. So I had a few years ago, it's probably my 4th year, 4 years ago, when I had a summer where I did have a couple clients, right, that just took advantage of my time, right, and spent a lot of time with them. You're spending personal time with them. This is before COVID, so I always drove my clients around, right, and always went and looked at places by myself with them, never thinking anything of it. But it just kind of felt off with this one gentleman, right? And after that, I just kind of thought about, geez, like, you know, even back in the day when I worked at show homes, right? I worked for a certain developer, and they did a lot of projects out in the Northeast. And my office was upstairs in a retail space, right? There was no security. So I had a lot of different people that would come up into a space. I didn't hear them coming in. And sometimes I would let them leave and lock the door because it just felt sketchy. You know, you have spidey senses. You really need to listen to those because those are trying to tell you something.
Gift of fear.
Yeah. So you are a lone worker when you're a realtor, right? And that's kind of diving into it, like trying to figure out, all lone workers should have some sort of safety button that they can push when they're not feeling safe so they can reach for help, right? And that's what I was kind of looking into, was something like that for myself. And at that time, my fiance, he had a couple of businesses approach him to come run their businesses. And one of them is a lone worker monitoring system.
Interesting.
So when I thought, this is something I could use for myself in real estate, I kind of wanted to dive a little bit more of what is a lone worker? 1 in 5 people are a lone worker, especially after COVID. You think about that. You are a lone worker working from your home. If your husband or wife is not there or your kids are not there, you're considered a lone worker. Before I showed up in this shop, you were a lone worker.
I know.
And it's the law in Alberta. It is not just you should have something for you for protection, but this is the law in Alberta and in BC and in Saskatchewan and Canada. And if you want to go digger in that and deeper than that in the United States, it's under the duty of care, right? It might not be a lone worker monitoring system you have to have in play for a lone worker, but in the U.S., you're under the duty of care.
Interesting.
And the duty of care is making sure you're doing everything to your capability of making sure that your employee is taken care of,
Interesting.
right? So when I found out that, and then I found out the stats of how many people, lone workers, are getting harmed, right, and killed, and the cost of that, right, it's alarming. And you don't hear about it. Why are we not hearing about it? Because I keep reading that they have 0 incidences, these companies.
Is it they don't have to report over under a certain number or something?
They just don't put it in.
That's wild. I heard about the realtor one. That's one that scares me the most because you do hear those stories.
It's awful.
Yeah.
But what about the oil and gas? What about the construction? Slips, trips, and falls. Let's talk about that, right? That happens everywhere. I mean, I fall every day. I slip. You got my klutz. But you have those klutzes outside and in the middle of nowhere, right? And it's just our job. It's our job as an employer to make sure you're taking care of your people. I mean, a lot of times I'm seeing that, you know, we don't really have the money. Even if it's the law, they still don't want to spend the money to monitor their people, to make sure that they get to go home to their loved ones at night. And they look at production over safety. But how about if you take a look at this and think about, okay, do you ever ask your workers how afraid you are in being in a hazard area, in an area that you're not connected to anybody, right? How do they feel? What about if they know that they're connected, to know that they're safe at all times, that they're going to make sure that they get home safely to their loved ones? What kind of production will they get out of them then?
It'd be nice to know that. Like, we always talk at work about, you know, normalizing risk, and it's such a buzzword, but the reality is that's most people's lives. They're around high risk, especially in the oil patch, so much.
Yeah.
They almost get desensitized to
That's
it.
right.
And I would argue that working alone is no different.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's change the mind shift. How about, right? I know that even now starting a safety business, when I even go mow my lawn now, I got to make sure I'm not wearing my flip-flops, and you got to take care. That might be a silly thing to say, but you know, safety is a big thing. What about if you shifted your mind shift of, if I do it this way, I might not be able to play baseball with my son again or throw a ball because I might not have an arm anymore if I don't follow, right? And just shifting that safety culture, right? That mind shift. Because no matter what, your people are number one. You wouldn't have a business without your people.
Agreed.
Right? It's your job to take care of them. And I don't know how, you know, we escape these laws. You know, it's funny. I have a friend, she owns an oil and gas company, and I talked to her about it. She's like, oh, we're so compliant. You know, I said, well, how are you making sure your people, your lone workers in your company are safe? Oh, no, we always keep in touch with them, you know, and they're fine and we're compliant. You know, so it's just, I'm trying to figure out, I thought when I started this business, I'm like, holy man, this is going to be easy. I'm an empath.
Slam dunk. Yeah, easy.
I'm an empath to a fault.
Yeah.
Right? And that is why I am so grateful I do have my fiancé in my life to help me with that. Because he has taught me to set boundaries, right? With people, right?
Easier said than done, but keep going.
It is easier said than done.
Yeah.
And, you know, and sometimes when you... I did lose my track right there, where I was going with this. Give me a
Well, I
second.
definitely was in the context of working alone and worrying about people. Like, it's a no-brainer. It's obvious, but like, how do you get different companies, their leadership culturally, to get on board with this? Because some companies do it naturally.
Yeah,
they have good leaders, strong leaders. They have built a culture around looking after each other, their people, so on and so forth. But I would suggest very strongly, we know for a fact not every company's like that.
No, they're not.
And they're more commercially driven. Again, different conversation altogether, where the bottom line unfortunately does take priority in some of those companies, you know. And I don't know companies, or I wouldn't dare speak them out loud, but how do you get people on board with this? We all agree people are number one. They're most important aspect. We all agree. That's no problem. But how do you get people to say, well, there's actually a price tag to care?
Well, I've tried that. I've tried to figure this out myself, David, because there's so many times where I think, oh my goodness, this is so easy. Like I said, that's what brought me back. I thought safety this business was going to be easy, right? Especially being an empath, that's where I was getting. But it's not. Man, this has been so difficult. But I won't say names, but I was working with a pretty large oil and gas company to help provide safer outcomes for their lone workers, because they have many of them. And it wasn't easy. And maybe I got in through connections, right? But I did get in the door. And I thought to myself, how am I going to learn? Like, this is a large company, and I have no business telling a business how they need to do things. But what I can do is listen. So I did. I took the time. And I took, everyone was in that first board meeting I had, so all different operation managers from different cities, and HR was in there, and safety was in there. And I set up meetings with each one. Right? And I just listened, you know, and eventually after I gained their trust, each of them they were able to tell me how they felt, or they wanted things to change, right? And I carried my notes on, and I took all those notes, and I said, this isn't, you know, I'm telling you this out of, you know, privacy, and not to have anyone tattle on one another. But this is how your people feel. You know, this is how I can help. You know, and it's just simply, what do you love, what you're using? Let's not change that, right? Because that's important. You don't want something too difficult, you know. But if they love using something and they already have success with that, let's keep that in play. But let's kind of build on that, right? So that's how I try to pick the technologies that I have in my catalog to use, right? So let's keep this, but the technology I have, I can just take that a step further and make it a little bit better, right?
No, I like it.
And if something's not working at all, then let's fix it together.
That's a great approach you're taking. I don't know if, especially at the leadership level,
Yeah.
you know, people don't always get honesty from their subordinates.
That's
and,
right.
You know, a lot of telling you what you want to hear and good news and stuff, and that's not the reality.
It's not.
Yeah. Are you having some success slowly penetrating, focusing on the oil and gas market, or are you trying to focus on construction, or just wherever you feel there's a need?
Wherever I feel it's a need, I've
Okay.
kind of gone in a way of what are the laws? I should have technologies for the laws. The laws that come out are really smart. Lone worker. Now we have heat stress that is coming out, right? Huge in the States.
Okay.
And fatigue. Fatigue's so important. You know, especially too with marijuana being legalized in a lot of North America. How do you detect that, right? You just can't do a drug test and say, right?
We talk about marijuana a lot because, you know, there's always a pre-access test.
Yeah.
And once you get through the pre-access, then you're kind of on the job.
Yeah.
And again, it's legal and you have days off. How do you
That's
mandate
right.
what people do in their free time? And
Yeah. So it's monitoring their fatigue.
Yeah.
You know, I am looking for the proper technology for fatigue right now. You know, and a lot of biometric readings can do that. But like biometric reading is kind of like GPS tracking. People think, oh my God, you know, you're tracking me, you're going to know about my health. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? GPS tracking, we're not tracking you unless you hit that SOS button and you need to be tracked. You don't have to worry about if we're tracking you for a 10-minute extra long coffee break or what you're doing. We don't care about that. The only time we know where you're at is if you choose to, is if you need us, right? Same with the heat stress. I mean, our biometric readings, you know, are only to do with as if the technology sees you wavering, right? It'll let you know. You need to just take a rest, right? It'll let the supervisor know.
Again, this
You
is
know?
all no-brainer stuff. How do you get the workers on board who are worried about the, I don't want to say big brother or whatever the word is.
It is, though.
People don't want them in their business, basically.
I don't know.
So, and you know, we know people are hesitant to speak
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Whether it's for physical challenges, mental
right.
health challenges, or whatever. So we know that. How do you get people on board? Say, you know what? This isn't just good for you. It's actually good for everyone.
It takes
Good for your family. And,
leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership needs that, right? Just like it's our job as parents to make sure our kids feel safe. And if it's not safe, explain to them why, right? You need that. You need that with leadership. And I think without leadership, we won't have that. And I try so hard, and sometimes you just have to, you know what? This isn't the company because it's not the right leadership, right? Clearly. But I think it does stem from leadership, and I think employees need to start speaking up. It's okay to speak up.
Well, I mean, legally, they have it's okay to, when they're not safe and a variety of
Yeah.
other things. But again, we talk about this all the time. When we talk to the guys.
Yeah.
Like, you have, at any given moment, you don't, whether you're safe or not, if you don't feel safe, you're
Yeah.
okay to put up your hand. That is okay. You're protected
That's
by law
right.
and all that kind of stuff. And the reason we encourage guys, because we don't want you to be protected by the law. We just want you to feel comfortable speaking up, because we know if you're comfortable speaking up at work, we've created a good culture, a safe space where you're
Absolutely.
psychologically and physically safe. That's what we're trying to create.
Yeah.
The reality is that across all companies? I would say no way. I just don't see it.
A small percentage,
Yeah.
David. Yeah, I'm not giving up on this. This is going to help shape the future for my children, right? And if I can help make a difference now for my kids' generations, I've done something right. I could have given up on this because it is hard.
Yeah.
Safety's not an easy fix at all. But I'm hoping by not giving up and sharing my message that I can somehow make a difference. And oil and gas deserves that.
For
You
sure.
know, you guys go through so much, especially with the economy we're in,
Oh,
the
and
leadership that we have,
wild uncertainty right now.
and being from Grand Prairie, I have seen many friends, that's just kind of where you go to, is the oil and gas when you're from there, right? I've seen the pain and suffering they've gone through, and I have seen people getting hurt. And it's just, safety's not a topic. And the fact that even good friends of mine tell me that their people are protected all the time, it's a lack of knowledge on their part from generations before.
And people, use the word compliance, like, oh, we're in compliance, which anyone who's been around a while interprets compliance the way I do, which is paperwork. Did you check all the boxes? Do you have so when they go, something goes wrong, that's the first thing they go to is the paperwork. But heaven forbid someone has to get hurt first before you're doing the audit and the paperwork.
Yeah. Well, I think too, when I take a look at the reports that come out and they go towards the safety for the social part of it, that's where the safety's under, right? Under the ESG. When I hear 0 injuries, I'm like, what? On what planet? How can you say you've had 0 injuries? You're saying that your insurance hasn't had to come to play with any of your employees of getting hurt.
It's hard to believe.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think the ESG, it's become a big deal, ESG, right? And the reports and that, and I think that might help shape the way for the future for safety. And I think generations, the newer generation coming in, because we're spreading that word, right? And so I think it's going to come around. I'm hoping so.
Well, even the message you're preaching here today and elsewhere, I'm hoping, people, when you talk to them and you're looking in the eye, and they can pick up on your sincerity and you want them to be safe and okay, and here's a tool that I can give you to help. Yeah,
and it doesn't break the bank.
Yeah.
Honest to God, it does not break the bank. But I think that it'll go a long way, right? And I'm just hoping to be able to do that in high-risk industries like oil and gas, construction, manufacturing, right? That's another big one. And transportation, that's huge, right? Let's talk about preventing.
I like that, yeah.
Right? That's what we need to focus on, is preventing. These cameras that they put into trucks, right?
Well, most companies of any size now all have GPS monitored vehicles. And I used to think it was for their like seat belts, but it's so much more than that now.
It is so much more than that. But also it's for, you're falling asleep. Like, wake up. Starting to swerve there. You need to wake up, David.
Oh, it's an extra journey management layer, which actually I think is real positive.
I think it's a positive thing, but you're already falling asleep.
Yeah.
How do we take care of it before you fall asleep? What are we doing that you're falling asleep? Do you know what I mean? Let's take a pause here and see why you're fatigued. And if, it might not be marijuana. Of course, majority of the time it's not. Majority of the time it's not alcohol either. It could be from, we're overworking you, one, or you were up all night with a sick child. We don't know your story. But at least if we could manage it, it also gives us the opportunity to open the door of speaking to our people, asking them if they're okay, right? Mental illness, too, is a big one with that. It opens the door to talk to your people.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, again, I hate calling it a buzzword, but it's becoming more conversation that's getting out there, and I'm very grateful. Yeah. So even for you talking about it a little bit, I appreciate, because we do need people to know mental health. It's such a catchphrase, but it's so much more than that.
And that can stem from being fatigued. You don't know, or stressed out about your job. But you're always expected to do your best job. But let's think about it. How do we set our people up to do their best job? It's taking care of them.
Yeah.
And it's a total mind shift, and you hear that everywhere. I feel like I'm repeating what every safety person says, changing the culture in safety. But it's the truth. That's why I admire your work. When I had you join my webinar, thank you for that again.
Of course.
It was very inspiring for me to hear that there are companies out there that take that time to talk to their people, right?
Oh, for sure.
And you guys do. You really do. I mean, I'm going to sit here and say you can do more, right?
For sure. I think every company is different, and I'm a big fan of, making sure the proper leadership is in place, because so much falls from that. And culturally, whether it comes to safety or technical performance or environmental, whatever you want to call it, it all falls on leadership. That's how I see it anyway.
It does. Let's just keep hoping that there's more leadership like you in the books, and I'm sure there is.
For sure there is.
I gotta. I'm hoping like there's a new technology I hope to bring into my catalog, and that's a successful company having great success in Dubai and Saudi Arabia. But I think it could be a great product to bring to companies like oil and gas here in Alberta and into Texas and all those. So if you're listening to me, they know who they are. Let's get going.
That's good. Well, good luck navigating. There's been a lot of, without getting into politics too deeply, there's a lot of, back and forth and nuances between the politics between Canada and the U.S. these days. And it's very, very, I don't want to say disheartening, but it's too bad.
It's too bad.
It's separating people into different camps and different groups. And I've been trying to get roped into it a little bit. People try to rope me into it, but I can't be baited. I have too much, American friends and family on both sides.
That's
Plus,
right.
in the industry, it's,
Me too.
You can't get me into that conversation.
Funny, because my mom and dad were here for Jesus grad, and my mom, she's this beautiful soul. Always works out, right? One of my biggest mentors, I have a few on my list here. She's one of them. And she told me, I just said, pissed off, what happened. We deserved better than that. Well, she agrees. She's conservative. Doesn't matter, conservative, liberal, who you are. But she said, Aimee, it's how you deal with it.
Yeah.
If you let it affect your business, it will. Don't let that stop you. Because there's still oil and gas companies. There's still all those companies that you need to talk to. And just don't let the politics get in the way, because it always works out.
But that is remarkably sage advice.
It is.
And it's hard to take sometimes, because it's a pretty emotional issue.
It is.
This politics. So if you can take a step back and go, okay, the sun will rise tomorrow.
Yeah.
It helps put things in perspective
That's right.
a little bit, for sure.
We still have our oil pump in, maybe not as much as we wanted to, right? We still have our jobs, but it's up to us how we react. And I love her for that, because she always says, Aimee Murray, it's always going to work out. So it's up to you how you rise up to that challenge.
Oh, man. Usually you only hear the middle name when you're in shit, hey?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you said you have other people you've thought of for mentors over the years.
Yeah.
Who are some other people?
My children.
Nice. I've never heard that before.
My children. I do everything for them. They're my purpose. Life hasn't been easy, right? With my son's brain injury. But it wasn't just me that helped to rehabilitate him. I have two other amazing boys that we did teamwork to help him, right? And, when your time is focused on one child, you feel so guilty. Like, I had enormous guilt of having to bring the kids along to the hospital every day for rehabilitation. Maybe my patients being a little bit thinner, or pouring more love to Jet, with the one with the brain injury. But at the end of the day, we went through this together, and I know it wasn't easy for them. It wasn't easy for any of us. Heck, my marriage didn't make it through it, but that's okay, right? It stems from love, and without love, there wouldn't be your business without your love for your company, for what you do for the field, right? Everything stems from love, and I believe that the love that I have for my children and for my family is what stems me to do what I do today. I want to make sure what I do today is going to help shape the generation of our children. And through innovation, technology, and through personal growth.
I like that. Not even your kids, other people's kids too.
Yes.
I like that.
I love kids. My house, when my fiance came into my life, I have 3 boys, right? And every day, each of them had 3, 4 kids over, right? And I know Joel came into my life, he's like, whoa. You know, he had 1 child. So for him, like, he's like, is it necessary to have all these kids over? But I was raised that way. I was raised in a day home. And my mom did it with such patience and love and grace. And I'm like my mom, you know? And I told Joel, he was like, do you have to do this? And I'm like, yeah. And I know it was hectic for him. I know it was something that, you know, he had to adjust to, but he did, you know? And we tried to slowly, then we're like, okay, once a week we can have that many kids over and that. But now it's, I think, you know, he really enjoys all those boys, right?
And it's funny, I've heard multiple people say, because our house is the place where we met every Friday with the friends and the kids and the chaos. And everyone always said, you are going to miss this one day. We're like, man, it's happening now and we love it. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well,
and already it's those Friday nights, they're few and far between now.
They are. And it doesn't last forever. And my mom always told me that. I remember I'd call my mom in the pantry when the kids were nuts and all these friends were over. And she's like, Aimee Marie, you're going to be calling me soon and you're going to be missing those days. And it's true. It's already happening. And it's okay. I mean, I guess they say you enjoy, life just begins after your kids leave. I'm still trying to find that. I will. You know, I have big plans and that, but I'll get used to it slowly, letting them go.
I had a really neat talk with one of the superintendents. This would be about a couple months ago. And he's definitely, him and his wife are definitely empty nesters. One kid still comes and goes, but basically empty nesters. And he said, you know, big rough and tumble superintendent, pipeliner, biker guy. And he said, you know, you don't realize it at a time, but your marriage has different marriages. You know, when you're first getting married, and then there's the kid marriage, and then there's the kids out of the house marriage, and then there's, like, he said, every time you have to focus on that with your partner and realize situations have changed, revisit it, and make sure you're always good and okay. And I thought, oh man, like, I would never envision this coming out of this guy's mouth because he is so rough and tumble, but again, long time married guy, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe he knows what he's talking about.
Right, hey? Yeah, it's great. Another mentor of mine, there's a couple more, and I'll mention them both. Healthcare, the nurses and the doctors that helped my son, the workers, every day. You know, saving lives comes in different forms, right? I honestly wanted to be a doctor growing up, or a nurse. And it wasn't until as I got older, realized that it was too much to see blood. It wasn't for me. And then the people suffering, it's hard for me, you know, as an empath yourself. It's hard to watch people suffer and in pain. So I realized, okay, I can't be a nurse or a doctor. So when my level up safety came to fruition, it was like another way of saving lives, taking care of people that I can do without being a doctor and a nurse. You know, I get to do it through innovation of technology, right? So healthcare was a big part of knowing that it comes in all forms, right? And I've mentioned before, my fiance, like I said, he's a big tech entrepreneur. And starting this business, you know, it wasn't easy. Oh my goodness, I thought it was going to be easy, but it wasn't. But he kept reminding me what I'm doing. You know, you need to have boundaries, not just in your personal life, but in your career, right? Because you just have to have it. And without that guidance of him teaching me that, you know, there's boundaries, you know, and it's okay to stick up for yourself and for your business, you know, that makes you a better person, right? So, but use your passion and your empathetic self to be the best of yourself, right? So that was great. He was another mentor of mine. So I guess as you grow, I think you have many mentors along the way.
Absolutely.
And I can even say right now, getting into the oil and gas business, that right now David Hermanson is a mentor of mine. Yeah, so I thank you for that.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
Yeah. Caught me off guard. How has this influenced the way you mentor and guide other people?
Well, that's tricky. And it's a conversation I have to have with myself every day because I take on everything. I always want to take care of people, like even going downtown for a meeting and you see the homeless percentage rise like that, and the addiction and the mental illness of that, it weighs on me so much to the point that I let it affect my day, right? And I have to remind myself, I can't fix everybody. So you have to learn to wake up each day to have a feeling, take it, acknowledge it, and let it go, right? So I'm learning that every day. It's not easy every day.
I was going to say, someone like yourself, you innately care. How do you, setting up boundaries has got to be easier said than done.
Wow, it is. But without my partner, I don't know where I'd be today. And I truly mean that. And without my children, my eldest son, he tells me all the time, Mom, stop. You care too much sometimes, right? Which is not a bad thing. But when it gets in the way of you trying to do your job or gets in the way of you continuing what you need to do in the day, you know, you need to stop. So I have to turn to the people, those friendly voices. My mom, I have a best friend too, and many best friends, you know, but there's just a couple that I just, if I hear their voice, it's okay. Talk to my partner, you know, and he can guide me. And celebrate your small successes along the way. And I tell that to my kids all the time. My middle son just got a really good car. God, now I'm supposed to remember what it is. It's like a Subaru sports car.
Okay. I don't know what it is either, but...
But he paid cash for it. And the excitement that he got when he brought that home, and we sat in there and I could just see him. And I said, son, that's just from you working hard. You paid cash for that car.
Yeah.
You know, with the help of us, you come home and we get to take care of you and you get to save your money. But celebrate that. Those are the, you know, and with Jace, I know you don't know. A lot of his friends are going to university. He still doesn't know. But celebrate that success of you graduating.
Freaking right. I'd say outside of your say driver's license, I'd say that's one of the first big milestones in a young person's life is that high school graduation.
Yeah. And it's like I started listening to Tony Robbins. I don't know if you listen to it.
I do. Absolutely I do.
So he does this exercise every morning. It's a priming exercise, and I just started doing this. I think I've done it twice. But man, it has already been so helpful for me. But it's like getting yourself excited, you know, like fake it till you make it, right? It's so important. But feel that excitement. Hold that excitement in for a minute, and then think of what you're grateful for. Feel it. And what you've been proud of yourself for. And then think about what you want to get done in a day and celebrate that you've already done it.
I like that.
Like 20 minutes.
There's something about Tony Robbins, like we all know who he is, but I know Sweet Marie went down to one of his events down in California 5, 6, 7 years ago or something, and she said, it's pretty wild. You want to talk about being in a room with energy?
Absolutely.
She said it's wild.
I just started a 3-day thing of his, and I'm really excited to get it started.
Yeah.
I'm 2 days late, but they send you the recording, so now that the family's gone and the graduation's over this week, I plan on starting that. But it's you just have to set these reminders that it's okay that if your day pulls you away from how you planned it, it's how you react, right? You can react, but let it go, right? And that's what I'm learning to do each day, and I think it's all my life experiences and failures and challenges have led me to where I am today. I wasn't supposed to be the most successful person when my business first started because I wasn't ready for it. I really wasn't. You know, it's taken me some challenges with partners, with tech companies, and with other people you hire. to go through that and to see where you're not happy with the weaknesses in that and see where you can go from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm ready now more than ever to do that. I mean, I remember my first board meeting with an oil and gas company, and it's they have like 2 floors, and I barfed in my mouth, and I kicked my partner underneath the table. I'm like, you gotta pick me up here, because I can't even speak, right? But it's just, I can't be everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I can take their tools. I can take Tony Robbins' tools. I can take my partner's tools. I can take everybody's tools in the world. But I still have to be Aimee.
Mm-hmm.
And that's taken me a while to get to. But here I am.
Mm-hmm.
The connections I make, the conversations I have, and the gratefulness I have
Mm-hmm.
where I am today is helping me be where I am today.
But how exciting is it to think you're not even at the end of your journey?
Just beginning.
Yeah, like how cool is that?
It's very cool. I'm hoping to be in that spot where safety shifts.
Mm-hmm.
There's been companies that you see these technology companies, shut down
Mm-hmm.
every year because they've invested everything, right? But it's just the ones that stick in there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to stick in there, right? I am making sure I'm not giving up, because I'm going to make sure, and my focus has been oil and gas, and I'm going to make sure that happens. I will. You watch me, and you're going to help me do it.
100%, sister, I got you. Before I let you go, because I know we're going to sit down and do this again.
We are, yes.
But I'm really hoping, of what little I know about you, Aimee,
Yeah.
I would appreciate if you have a word, kindness, encouragement for those people out there who still aren't working and they're still struggling, and the uncertainty between politics and life in Alberta and money and family and all the shit that's out there right now.
Yeah.
How do you give me something to pass along to them today?
Let go of that outside noise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm learning that every day, like I said. I have to. And I also have to be okay if I have a bad week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Sometimes if I have a bad week, I'll have such a good week of being strong and positive and uplifting, but then one thing can throw me off.
Mm-hmm.
But that's up to us. Like I said, reaction is such a key thing. And I'm telling you now, and I believe in it, it's love.
Mm-hmm.
Carry love with you. Find what you love. I don't want any of my kids going to work and not loving what they do, because they won't be successful at it. Find out what you love, and go with it.
Like him.
And it might take a bit, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I am near 50, right? And I don't want my kids, just like my mom, I don't want you to do what I did, or I just want, but that's life.
Mm-hmm.
I learned through lessons.
I think we all do. That's where scraped knees come in.
That's right. And
That's
learn
how we
from
learn.
examples.
Yeah.
And it's just patience and trust in timing.
Mm-hmm.
And universe, God, whatever you would like to call it, have that space.
I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, until next time, my friend, so glad to know you.
It's glad to know you. Thank you.